check, 1, 2.
Go! Curious about real estate? Yes! Then you've come to the right place. Get the knowledge you need. Get over the fear and get started. This is the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show with your host, Michael Quarles.
Hello, everybody. Michael Quarles with the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. Today we have podcast number 179. Oh my goodness, we're getting like really close to 200. That's like 21 episodes away from 200. This is exciting to me. I hope you guys are enjoying my rambling and doing this for you, and you're getting some nuggets that you can use in your daily real estate business. We have 5 questions sent in by real estate investors. And remember, if you have a question, send it to support@michaelquarles.com. One more time. support@michaelquarles.com. Little housekeeping before we get going. You guys are all aware, I hope, that yellowletters.com has a platinum card. That platinum card gets you 15% off of all of your direct mail orders for 2016. Guys and gals, that's an enormous savings. Let me break that down and what that means, to me anyway. That means every time I market, or would have marketed 6 times, I could almost market 1 extra time for free. And we know that we're supposed to be marketing at least every 30 days to our prospect. So if we shorten that period up to say 3 weeks, then we can market to our prospect faster, or we can increase the number of people we're marketing to. Because we know this is a numbers game. It's absolutely a numbers game. It's about how many pieces are on the street, how many times does someone see our marketing or our advertisement that causes them to pick up the telephone and call us. That's the job we have, is to make that happen. And the fact that we can do that and save 15% and have 7, equal or 6 equals 7, that's pretty cool. I like that. Another thing I learned last night, my wife and I were sitting on the couch, we were watching a movie, we were enjoying ourselves, a quiet time. And I've got to say, my wife, she likes peanut butter spoons. I like peanut butter spoons. The difference between me liking peanut butter spoons is when I go to my peanut butter jar and I like Jiffy cream. I don't like crunchy, just Jiffy cream. And I get a peanut butter spoon. I'm like, there's peanut butter on my peanut butter spoon. I don't know if any of you out there like peanut butter spoons, but if you do, you understand what I'm saying. If you want a peanut butter spoon, let's not be dainty about it. Let's put some peanut butter on the spoon. So she asked me, she says, Mike, now before I get here, my wife, she's measuring her food. She's working out twice a day. And makes me like, she doesn't make me sick, because that's the wrong thing to say. She makes me sick because she's working so hard at what she wants to achieve. The sick is like, man, I'm excited sick. So if that makes any sense. But anyway, she says, Mike, go get me a peanut butter spoon. Or she asked me, she didn't tell me. She asked me. Of course, I'm going to go get my wife a peanut butter spoon. I bring her back a table serving spoon with peanut butter on it. So I've got this chunk of creamy peanut butter on a spoon for her, because that's what I would get. And she looked at that. She said, honey, I asked for a tablespoon of peanut butter. I said, oh, well, that's a spoon. You put it on the table. It's peanut butter. She said, no. Can you just go get me a tablespoon of peanut butter? So I go back in the kitchen. I'm thinking, okay, now my job is to measure out a tablespoon of peanut butter. And so I do that. I put the peanut butter on a tablespoon. I make it straight all the way across. I bring it back to her. She said, what are you doing? I said, well, you said you wanted a tablespoon of peanut butter, and this is absolutely measured. This is a tablespoon of peanut butter. And I got looked at like I was, well, you would imagine the look. Anyway, I had to share that with you guys because I told her I was going to put it in one of my podcasts somehow. So here I just did it. Honey, I love you. You know, it's one of the nicest things I have in life is to be able to tell a wife that I love them. And if you haven't said that to yours or your husband in a while, man, go give them a big old fat hug and a big old fat kiss and just let them know why you're still there. And it's pretty cool stuff. Anyway, getting back to real estate, I'm going to start. Question number 1. One of my better zip codes extends into a part of the town that I'm not interested in purchasing houses in. Does yellowletters.com have the capability of running a list in a specific area on a map? As in a draw and outline area you'd like? I know we can't just cast judgment, but I'm in this situation. I get it. I mean, for a little bit of time in my life, I lived in Sacramento, California. And Sacramento is the state capital area of California. And so it has pretty good population base. And we have a freeway, kind of strange. It's like 5 lanes on each side. And there's a bridge that goes over one section of the freeway. And it's all the same zip code. And on, let's call it the east side of the bridge, those are like $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $7 million houses. On the west side of the freeway, they're like $100,000 houses, $125,000 houses. And it's different. Like, and the bridge isn't that long. I mean, it's only, traveling across the freeway. And you just have these 2 massively different economic groups. And if I said I wanted to market to the zip code, boy, if I wanted to do the low end zip code, I wouldn't want to market to the high end stuff and vice versa. And then you have some areas that just are, there's a little area of just maybe violence going on and you want to stay away from that. So there is a way that we can do a polygon. So where we share computers with you over at Yellow Letters and you can actually, draw with us kind of thing. Just exclude this is the area that I want, and then we can run your list that way. So absolutely, I absolutely understand that. Let me warn you in advance of this one fact, and it's a fact that you can bank on. Just because you wouldn't live in the neighborhood doesn't mean someone else won't. All right, the house wasn't built there by accident. People aren't currently living there by accident. It's what they like doing. Remember the days of taking sociology in college and how people cling together and what makes them happy in their surroundings and how they communicate and what they find valuable about their neighborhoods. What we may find valuable and what another person finds valuable could be different. But if we start allowing ourselves to pass judgment, we will miss out on extremely good opportunity. So be very conscientious of that. And when you're in a house and you see something that obviously you wouldn't want in your home, be careful not to pass judgment. Be careful of those facial expressions. Be careful of those shrugs of your shoulder. Be careful of just rolling up in that, fetal position kind of thing. Naturally, you're not going to roll up in a fetal position, but that where you're not approachable because you're annoyed or frustrated or just appalled at the living conditions of someone. You got to be real conscientious to not place your values on how someone else lives. The only time that I place my values on how someone else lives is if someone else is being harmed within their living condition. So if someone's abusing somebody, I'm going to make it a point to cause that abuse to stop, or at least to be notified, or I'll notify those authorities that need to make sure that abuse stops. But short of that, we can't pass judgment. So be careful of that. But yes, you can get a list for your own area. Question number 2, how do you cancel a listing agreement? What reasons would you give when you find out the property under contract that has an irreconcilable issue with title? The mortgage company in the 1990s never released their interest on the property, and the title company at the time is now defunct, and the mortgage company is no longer around either. I'm still working on it, but it may go south. I have realtors bring in offers which I may not be able to close on. Well, you really want to confirm that there is an actual issue here. And keep in mind, just because one title company or one closing attorney says there is an issue, that doesn't necessarily mean there is an issue. That's just one person or one company's opinion. Before I would kick a deal because of a title issue like this, I would want 3 similar opinions. So I'd like to have three companies saying, no, you can't do this. We have to have that issue take away. Because I know someone owns the right to that deed of trust. Someone's responsible for the reconveyance on that. So we'll just have to find them, or the title company. There may be a title company that bought the title company kind of thing. But I would do a lot of research. But how do you cancel a listing? Well, the listing is going to cancel itself at the end of the period of your listing agreement. I mean, you've listed it for X amount of days. So it's going to cancel itself if it can't, in fact, be sold. And I would just come clean with my agent and my broker and say, hey, I didn't realize that. If you did realize it and you went into a listing agreement, there could be some fraud issues. But if you didn't realize it, therefore there aren't any fraud issues or shouldn't be any fraud issues, you should be able to come clean with your broker and your agent and say, hey, look, this is the issue we're having. It doesn't appear as though we're going to be able to sell this house because of this title issue, and fall forward. Brokers don't want to get in litigation either. I mean, they'd rather not list the property than have a buyer that another broker represents, start causing issues for them. They would rather, kick the deal themselves. So just have open communication with the broker. Now, you can't cancel it. It takes them to cancel it. So you can't just cancel it. And let's talk for a second about the stages of a real estate listing and what they mean. So you have a listing agreement. That means you have a period of time that you can list a house. And there's 3 types of listing agreements. So we won't get into those right now, but there's 3 types. So you have an active listing. You have a pending listing. That's appended means there's an offer on it from someone that's been accepted. You have a contingent listing. That means there's an offer on it from someone that's been accepted. So it's in the pending status, but it's got a backup offer that's also been accepted. So if the first offer goes away, the second offer comes. And then you have a withdrawn listing status. That means the 2 parties agreed to withdraw the listing from the multiple listing service from the ability to sell it. But if someone does sell it during the listing period, the commissions are still due. You have an expired listing, which means that the amount of time that the listing agreement called for being contracted, so 90 days, 180 days, whatever it was, that time has elapsed and there's no more, the listing agreement expired. And then you have the canceled listing agreement, and that's where the broker has canceled the listing and made it as if it never happened. So if you have a listing agreement, the only 2 ways that you're comfortable if you've done an exclusive right to sell is if it's canceled or if it's expired. If you have a listing, it has to be canceled or expired, and then you can go sell it yourself unless you have an open-ended listing agreement. And then you can sell it yourself too. And then there's the one in the middle that you can sell yourself too. Hope that made sense.
Thanks for listening. We'll be right back. Are you running out of leads? It's time you tried Yellow Letters at yellowletters.com. Get motivated seller leads through yellow letters, postcards, zip letters, typed professional letters, greeting cards, door hangers, and business cards. Yellow Letters is a full-service marketing company created with your success in mind. Get the personal attention you need to get your direct mail campaign started and get in touch at yellowletters.com.
And we are back in 3, 2, 1.
Question number 3. what should we reply to sellers when they say, actually, I'm the one who really pays for those fees since you're deducting it from the offer price? And I'm assuming they're talking about when we tell a seller that we're going to deduct commissions and the title insurance and all that kind of stuff. The seller never pays that fee. Ever. They never pay that fee. So what happens is they sell a house for $100,000. Their portion of the cost, the traditional portion of their cost, let's assume for a second it's $10,000. They're subtracting that, and assume there's no loan, so it's $10,000 subtract from $100,000. They're going to get a $90,000 check. Okay? Where did the $100,000 come from? Anybody want to guess? The $100,000 came from the buyer. So what's happening is the buyer is giving a closing attorney or escrow $100,000 to pay $90,000 to the seller and to pay $10,000 in costs on behalf of the seller. But the buyer's paying for it. So if the buyer says, hey, I don't want to, and so let's assume for a second that there is a part of the seller's, that $10,000 cost was a real estate agent. So if the buyer at that point was the one that's paying for the real estate agent, but now on another transaction, there's not a real estate agent involved, but the properties are being appraised based upon themselves. So, one property sold for $100,000 with a real estate agent attached to it, and another one is being appraised. There's not a real estate agent. The appraiser's not taking a deduction because there's not an agent there. They're saying this house over here sold for $100, so this one over here is worth $100. But if that buyer is not using a real estate professional, they should subtract the cost of that because that cost is being appraised inside the value. So all of the costs that the seller authorizes are within the value of the appraised value. So if they're not paid or they're not paid because they're not utilized, or they're being paid by the buyer directly, so it's coming off their HUD, then we have to subtract it from the value of the property because it's being included within the property. And that may be really unclear. However, when a lender asks an appraiser to appraise a piece of property, they allow that appraiser to include commissions and closing costs within the value. So if they're allowing that to be included in the value, but yet they're not part of the transaction, then we have to subtract them from the value. We're not just going to give that to the seller, because it's like saying, okay, we're going to value everything as if it had a swimming pool, and our house didn't have a swimming pool. Well, we have to subtract the value of that swimming pool because it's not part of it, even though the house may still be worth, from an appraised perspective, that value. But because we're effectively giving the seller the money to give the realtor, it's our money. We're the ones that are giving it to the seller. They're giving it to the realtor through their closing company. Then we're actually paying for it. They never pay for it, ever. Sellers never, ever, even when they bring money to the table, they're not paying the realtor or the cost. They're reducing the principal balance on their loan. So just understand that, okay? And we can talk about that one for a long time if we want to, if that wasn't clear. But I hope that was clear for some people. Question number 4. When we have a contract that includes the right to list the property on the MLS, should we list the property immediately or should we wait until we have a clear title? My presumption is to wait until we know that the title is clear and to learn if there are any liens or taxes on the property that the owner did not know about. Also, based on my most recent experiences, some properties can take months to clear title. Well, That's a great question, and there's all kinds of answers to it, but let's answer it this way today. Let's get a BPO to support our value. And most likely we're going to use our BPO agent to list. So that's going to come pretty fast. So we get a contract, we think it's worth $100,000, we're buying it for 60. Our agent goes out there, does a BPO, says, yep, it's worth 100. Once we're satisfied that it's worth what we thought it was worth, let's get it listed. Inside of the listing agreement with the agent, we're going to put subject to seller obtaining title. So the condition is the listing is subject to you being able to obtain title, constructive notice, being able to buy it, having the seller to be able to sell it to you. So that's a condition of the listing agreement. It also has to be a condition of your resale agreement with your buyer, but that's a different question. So we're going to take it we're going to list it subject to seller obtaining title. Then go ahead and get your prelim. And prelims, they can come fast, they can come slow. But we want to get it on the market because, well, one, we're safe because we have a realtor that says it's worth what we thought it was worth. So we're fine there. We're safe because we have a listing agreement that says subject to seller obtaining title. And now let's start selling it. And I don't know about you folks, but when there's a fire that's been lit behind something, things seem to work faster, get done sooner. And a fire started by a buyer who wants to buy a piece of property has a tendency of getting everybody involved to act faster. So I kind of like that. So let's get it on the market. Let's start the process. If we start having options to sell and we accept an offer, that's fine. We're just now going to tell our closing attorney we're going to do a concurrent. We're going to tell our seller that we're going to do a concurrent and force everybody to start performing. And we're going to tell our buyer that it's subject to us obtaining title, and we may or may not be able to set a sell date at the moment, or we're going to set a sell date at 180 days or sooner. And so what you don't want to do is lock yourself into a small window of a sell date. I'd rather you lock yourself into a large window of a sell date. So if you don't know that you can get title cleared in the next 60 days, do 180 days. Just be honest. If you're honest with a buyer and they decide to say yes, well, you were honest with them. But if you weren't honest and you went into a 60-day escrow, they thought 60 days was all they needed. They were counting on being able to buy the property and do whatever they thought the property needed and whatever they were going to do with the property after 60 days. And then you come to them and say, hey, I need another 2 or 3 months. They're going to go sideways. They're going to go away. They're going to go buy somebody else's property. But if you were in advance, if you were honest and open and say, hey, I may need 6 months, that's fine. And if they agree to that, they agree to that. You can't lose what you don't have. So if you say 6 months and someone says, no, I have to buy it in the next 30 days, and you know, in fact, that you can't sell it in the next 30 days, no matter how much fire you light under all the parties to make them participate faster, well, you can't sell it. So there's no reason in accepting that offer. Why go through that stress? So, in multiple listing service right after BPO. And subject to obtaining title. And don't accept any offer without countering the offer, subject to seller obtaining title, and fall forward. Now, when you list it, I always want to list them subject to interior inspection as well. What that means is the buyer is not going to see the inside of the house, physically see it, until after I've accepted their offer. And that keeps all the people from, tracking through the house and frustrating the seller that you're buying from. So subject to you obtaining title, subject to interior inspection. And today you can post all kinds of pictures of the inside of a house, and we're investors and our buyers are typically investors. So it's not like they are getting emotional about, the house like you would if you were buying your own personal residence where you'd want to see it and smell it and, visualize it. It's an investment. Yeah, put it on the market. Question number 5. The title company that I've been using is under investigation. Wow. And it may be shut down before too long. I was advised by my escrow officer that it is in my best interest to take all my information that she has provided me and take my deal to another title company. I see this as a fairly simple solution to simply move on. However, I worry that I could be missing something here. Are there any concerns that I should have switching horses midstream like this when the first company is under investigation and effectively shut down doing business? Now, I don't see any issues with it. There's many times that you have to switch title companies in the middle. There just is. You'll find that where maybe you have a lapse in period of title, and the last title insurance company that was on the books, you may have to switch it to them because it's easier for them to cover the period from their title insurance all the way through your resale. There's several reasons that you'll switch title companies every once in a while. There's several reasons you'll switch escrow companies from time to time, and especially closing attorneys. So, it is what it is. It's your right. There may be a fee, but probably in this case, there's not. They're going to go out of business. But there may be a fee if you switch title or escrow companies because you choose to switch them, not because they're doing something wrong or they can't participate some way. But yeah, there's nothing wrong at all. That's one of the reasons we always want to be, I harp upon always communicating with vendors like real estate agents, contractors, lenders, closing companies, on a weekly basis. Always be interacting, always be networking, because you want to know prior to needing to know who to use as a service provider, because it's always the most expensive time when you need something done to find that person. If you already have that person, it's typically not as expensive. So, and it goes for title insurance and escrow and closing as well. So, find your closing attorney that does sub 2, find your escrow company that does sub 2 seller financing, find the ones that do contracts for deeds or land contracts or performance contracts. Find all those folks, find the people that do mobile homes, because in some states that's a motor vehicle. And so you just want to find those relationships and build those relationships. But as to your question, no, it's fine. Those were fun questions. I hope I made sense on those. And I look forward to the next podcast. And remember, text the word wealth to 313131 if you want to be held accountable for your day. Again, that's wealth, the word wealth, to 313131. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. Get more info and stay in touch at michaelquarles.com.